until the end of October. Yes! From now till the end of October, you stand a chance of winning a bag of rice when you receive monies in the Gambia from UK, Europe, USA, Canada and Switzerland with Supersonics money transfer. Amazing! So from now till the end of October, every time you receive monies in the Gambia from UK, Europe, USA, Canada and Switzerland, you stand a chance of winning a bag of rice. Only 100 bags available, so hurry now and be part of the 100 lucky winners in this special unbeatable bonanza from now until the end of October with Supersonics money transfer. Enjoy our safe, fast, reliable and convenient money transfer service with the largest payout network in the Gambia with charges starting from zero. Yes! Visit the Google Play Store or the Apple Store today to download the Supersonics money transfer app and enjoy excellent money transfer services only with Supersonics. The unbeatable bonanza with Supersonics.
Amen. Amen. Good afternoon, colleagues here present from civil society, members of the press. Our gathering this afternoon is a referendum on the unity of civil society in the Gambia, stating the need for us as a nation to have a new constitution to usher in a third republic, thus making the statement that a new Gambia is born, where never again is not only a phrase or just a saying, but it is our reality. So our gathering here is to validate and to show our unity and agreement that our country needs to move on, and the foundation upon which it will thrive is a new constitution. Here with me on this table, from my extreme right, we have the representative from Think Young Women, and seated on her left, immediate left, is the representative from the Gambia Press Union. On my immediate right is the president of the Bar Association. On my immediate left is the chairman of the Center for Victims and Human Rights Abuses, Human Rights Center, Violation Center. Gambia Center for Victims and Human Rights Violations. And then we have also a young dynamic lady from the National Youth Parliament and a young man from Activista. You will get to know that we have diverse civil society organizations present here, and we want to speak on our position as civil society as per the draft constitution that is currently being debated, the bill for the draft constitution that is currently being debated at the National Assembly. My statement will be very brief. I will just say one thing and then hand over to my colleagues, after which we will take questions from members of the press. What I just want to say is that the process to appoint members of the Commission for the Constitutional Review has been very inclusive, very transparent, and I'm sure all Gambians, or most Gambians, if not all, were satisfied with the caliber of people that were chosen to be in the Constitutional Review Commission. And it is also our view that they were, the selection process was very inclusive. I know the youth, the women, the civil society were all consulted, and we all had our input in the selection process. Having said that, it is also true to say with the passing of the CRC Act, the National Assembly of the Gambia indeed showed their agreement that there was need for a new constitution. That act was passed, the CRC was constituted, they started work, they've gone through the country, they've consulted, they've submitted the draft to the executive, and to the credit of the executive, they have not touched it, and they have passed it to our representatives. And what we expect is that our representatives in the National Assembly will defend our best interest. With this opening remarks, I would want to hand over to my dear brother and good friend, Mr. Saliu Tal, who is the president of the Gambia Bar Association, to make his statement. Mr. Tal.
My fellow panelists, good evening to members of the press and to all our listeners. Today is a very important day, and we're here to discuss a very, very important issue. An issue that touches the destiny and future of our beloved country, the Gambia. On December 2nd, 2016, we voted for change. As a people, we decided that we wanted to depart from dictatorship and tyranny. We ushered in a new government, a government that came on the back of the promise to change the governance architecture, to set a foundation for a new Gambia. The foundation stone of a new Gambia is a new constitution. Accordingly, like my brother John said, the government proposed a bill to Parliament to set up the CRC, the Constitutional Review Commission. This bill was passed by our elected NAMs, National Assembly members. This commission was funded by our taxpayers' money with the mandate and objective to draft a new constitution that reflects the aspirations and collective wills of the Gambia to depart from the past and turn to a new page. My colleague has already discussed the fact that the process of appointing the members of the commission was very transparent, inclusive, and consultative. It is right to say that the integrity and professionalism of the CRC is beyond reproach. We have outstanding Gambians of integrity, achievement, who did an extremely good job, and we are grateful for that. And most importantly, the Act stipulated that the Commission must consult Gambians across the length and breadth. It didn't stop there. Also went to the Gambians in the diaspora. Also consulted stakeholders within the country as groups. For instance, the executive was consulted, the judiciary was consulted, the legislature was consulted. And they went to all the regions. The culmination of this consultation was a draft bill. This draft reflected our diverse and divergent views, was reflected in this draft and presented to the executive, which, to their credit, under the leadership of Abubakar Tamidu, was presented without any amendments to our elected NAMs, our people who are serving our interests at the People's Assembly. Now, we are at a crossroad. Under the Constitution, the NAMs, as part of the constitutional amendment process, are reviewing the Constitution. They're deliberating over the Constitution. They had a first reading and started a second reading of the Constitution. They need to read the Constitution 3 times: first reading, second reading, and third reading. And it is required that 3/4 or 75% of our NAMs must vote in favor of this Constitution before it can be sent to the population for a referendum to approve or reject it. Here we are. I say we're at the crossroad because we have now the first reading of the Constitution. I believe many of you have been following the proceedings. The purpose of the first reading, I think it's important for us to know, is to deliberate over the principles and merits of the draft Constitution, meaning, do we need a new Constitution? Meaning, the draft Constitution before the House of Assembly, is it in line with the principles set out in the CRC Act? Because the CRC sets out the principles that will guide what kind of constitution we have. These principles are basically respecting the sovereignty of our country, respecting our republican system of governments, our democratic values, and respect for rule of law and human rights, and to encompass our national unity, cohesion, and peace, separation of power, and the importance of having periodic elections, including a term limit of the presidency, and also to respect the continued existence of the country as a secular state, where all faiths are treated fairly and encouraged to foster national cohesion and unity. So our NAMs basically are supposed to discuss whether or not the draft before them meets this requirement. And if they think so, they should vote overwhelmingly to support, to allow the draft to go, hopefully, to the committee stage, where they will be able to discuss substantive clauses, which clause, each clause by clause, which clause they think serves the interest of the people or not. I think fundamentally we need to remind our National Assembly members that they are serving in Parliament at our behest. We voted them in. And in deciding which way to vote, it should be informed and dictated by the conscience and the interests of the Gambian people. This is not a time to vote on partisan lines or individual interests. This is about our country, about our destiny, about our future. We, as civil society, we believe that this constitution, it's not a perfect constitution, but it's a very good constitution. No constitution is perfect. But it goes a long way in addressing some of the ills that help perpetuate tyranny and dictatorship. It's a constitution that would ensure that executive power is within the limits and scope of the Constitution know that basically it respects the separation of powers, it empowers our judiciary and the independence. It also empowers our National Assembly to act as a check on the executive. It also ensures that citizens have a right, have an array of rights that they never enjoyed before, fundamental rights, so particularly socio-economic rights. These are all provisions that would enhance our democracy. Importantly, it stipulates that no president can serve beyond 2 terms. The First Republic stayed for 29 years, I believe, 29 or 30 years. The previous regime served for 22 years. Never again, as Gambians, do we want our leaders to serve beyond 2 terms. And the CRC, in their outreach and consultations, Gambians have overwhelmingly agreed that they want their leader, their president, to serve only 2 terms, to ensure that and prevent the possibility of having leaders who are perpetually in power. So, what is at stake? On Monday, our NAMs will continue the second reading, and they will vote at the end of either Monday or Tuesday on the second reading, and we expect our NAMs to overwhelmingly vote to allow the bill to continue and hopefully to be analyzed in detail at the committee stage. If the contrary happens, in the event that, for example, we don't have up to 75% of the NAMs voting in favor, what does it mean? It means that the Constitution we want, the People's Constitution, the Constitution that we spent over $116 million of our taxpayers' money, the Constitution that the young people of Gambia, the old people of Gambia, have spent time and resources to ensure, contributed immensely, going all over the length and breadth of the country, outside the Gambia, would basically now be discarded. Which means that if it fails, on Monday they vote against this constitution, that means basically it's over as far as the draft is concerned. We have to start all over again. It means that it is likely that we are going into 2021 election under the same constitution that has been used as an instrument to perpetuate dictatorship. Is this the Gambia we want? We are calling on all Gambians to engage their NAMs and remind them of their solemn responsibility and obligation to act in the interests of the sovereign citizen of Gambia at whose behest they're elected. We hope that on Monday or Tuesday, they will ensure that the merits and the principles of the Constitution clearly is in line with our democratic values. We want them to ensure that they vote overwhelmingly to support the draft so that it could go to the next stage. On that note, I thank you all. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Tal, President of the Gambia Bar Association. Now we will hear from Mr. Laman.
Permit me to stand on the existing protocol, so I will go in straight into the statement. I want to first and foremost say that the Gambia Press Union and the media were in the forefront fighting dictatorship and tyranny for the past 22 years. not because we did not like the person, or not because we did not like the former president, or not because we did not want the former government, but the Gambia Press Union and the media was continuously and on sustained basis fighting against dictatorship and tyranny because the laws that were underpinning that dictatorship were inimical to the press. This was why the Gambia Press Union fought against that system. And this was why at the fall of that system, the Gambia Press Union welcomed the coming of this system because we thought we had the system, or we have the system change that we wanted. Because we all know systems are underpinned by laws. And the new government, at the time of their campaign, promised us that they were going to give us the laws that we wanted. They were going to give us the laws that guarantee freedom of expression, access to information, and media independence. This was why the media sector opens up, and the media fraternity opens up to the new government, welcome it with open arms. And part of the reasons why we welcome them with open arms, like I said, is because they promise us new laws, new system that is going to guarantee the freedom of expression and media freedom that we want. Those laws are in this new constitution. This is why the Gambia Press Union, the media sector, are in favor of this draft new constitution of the Gambia. If you look at the history of the Gambia from independence to date, never had Gambia had any kind of constitution particularly that guarantees freedom of expression, access to information like this particular one. If you do a basic comparative analysis of the 1970 constitution, the 1997 constitution, to this particular draft constitution, you will realize that the previous last constitution were not completely in favor of freedom of expression. If you look at this draft, you realize freedom of expression is guaranteed, media freedom is guaranteed, access to information is guaranteed. Even the public service broadcaster that we all wanted is guaranteed in this new constitution. Most of the people were saying during the past 22 years that the state broadcaster, for example, was only giving views, or was only broadcasting the views and aspirations of one political party. That was the political party in power. That was the existing government at the time. But with this new constitution, we are going to have a public service broadcaster that is going to guarantee the freedom, that is going to guarantee other political parties, people with dissenting opinion, access to that medium. I'm sure we all wanted this. This is not only the aspiration of the media, but every Gambian wants access to the state media. Every Gambian wants access to the public media, so your views can be heard, even if they are dissenting. Because we cannot have development where you only have one views, one aspiration propagated. This is why we must support this constitution by all means. If you look at access to information also, like I said, the 1970 constitution, not the 1997 constitution, did not guarantee access to information like we're having now. And access to information, I keep saying, it's not just for journalists. Even the National Assembly members themselves, most of the time in their session, they do lament that they have difficulty in accessing information that is in the corridor of power. They have difficulty in accessing public information. This law, it's coming, guaranteeing access to information, not just for the media, not just for the citizenry, but for the parliamentarians themselves. And I think they should know this thing, because after the promulgation of this constitution, after the coming into effect of this constitution, they, the parliamentarians themselves, can now begin to rely on the provisions of this constitution to demand for certain information in the government or in the corridors of government. So because of that, they should also support this constitution. If you look at media freedom also, the media, we are told, is the voice for the voiceless, and the voiceless are the masses, are the people. The media is supposed to transmit the voices, the aspiration of the people to the governed, holding the governed accountable to the people that they are supposed to serve. So if you free the media, you are in effect freeing the citizens. If you free the media, you are in effect guaranteeing the voices of the citizens to be heard by the governors. This constitution guarantees that, or at least this draft constitution guarantees that. The parliamentarians, therefore, should endorse this constitution because of that. Having said this, I want to particularly single out the people at the National Assembly that have some media background. For example, here we're talking about Honorable Mahdi Cisse, here we're talking about Honorable Usman Silla, Honorable Swaibu Toure, even Honorable Salah himself. All these are people that have media background, and all of them should know that they should support this constitution because their background is going to be further strengthened, enhanced by this draft constitution. Going against this draft constitution by the National Assembly members would effectively mean, like Sal said, we're going back to the 1997 constitution. And we have all seen what the 1997 constitution had done to the Gambian media. We've seen they still rely on the 1997 Constitution to shut down media houses arbitrarily, to malhandle journalists arbitrarily. Nothing comes out of it with impunity. That means this is the regime, this is the Constitution we will go back to. And I'm sure not just the media doesn't want this. Even the National Assembly members would not want this. Because there were days in the National Assembly when your views are against the views of the president of the government at the time. You dare not say it. Or if you say it, the next time your marching orders will come. So therefore, they themselves should support this bill, because this is the bill that is in favor of them. Apart from every other thing, not just for the media, like Sal said, as citizens, journalists are citizens first before they are journalists. And as citizens, this Constitution guarantees our civic right. It guarantees our political right. It guarantees our social life. It guarantees our economic right. Therefore, in addition to every other thing, this draft new Constitution should be supported by the National Assembly members, because it guarantees, or it has in principle, all the things that we want. Of course, I'm not saying the media sector supports all the provision in totality, but the principles are there. Because if you reject it, you will not even have the opportunity to go back to say, this particular provision falls of the international standard, let's improve it. When you vote no, you are rejecting it in totality. We will not have the chance to go back to improve or strengthen them. If you vote yes, you are accepting it with the faults perhaps that you may see there, but those faults can be improved. This is what it means to vote yes, and this is what it means to vote no. So I think the National Assembly members, as honorable people that they are, they will do what is expected of them, because we are all watching them, and history will judge all of us by our action. We are in an epoch-making time, and I'm sure the National Assembly members would want to be recorded in the positive history of the Gambia. Thank you so much.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me the floor. I think we've heard what the various speakers have said with regards to the new draft constitution. It is our constitution. It is everybody's constitution. But most specifically, I will talk on behalf of women. My name is Mbasi Mane. I am the program officer for Think Young Women. We all know that this draft constitution, it's very consultative during the drafting. Everybody was consulted, including women, in the various constituencies. So it will be very ideal to have this constitution passed, for the fact that comparing this constitution to the 1997 constitution, it is very gender-friendly, and it has highlighted women's political representation, and it has really and thoroughly talked about women's rights and women's empowerment. So I feel women should come on board, especially National Assembly members, female National Assembly members specifically. We have Honorable Yakumba Jete in the National Assembly, we have Honorable Tuma Njai in the National Assembly, and we have Honorable Fatmata Jawara, Honorable Ndeseka, and all female members in the National Assembly. To safeguard I am appealing to all of them to safeguard the interests of the women by ensuring that this constitution, is passed, and because it is in the interest of the women. When you look at it from the Bill of Rights up to Schedule 2, it has highlighted various things. It talked about non-discrimination based on gender. It talks about women's rights, and it talks about having specifically 14-seat allocation in the National Assembly for women, which I think is very progressive compared to the previous compared to the current 1997 constitution, excuse me, because I have been very optimistic that this constitution, the National Assembly will never reject it. So I was shocked and still shocked when I see the outcome and saw the manner in which it was handled. Speaking on behalf of the women, I know the women are not the least impressed. Today we are talking about maternal death here and there. We know how women are suffering in the hospital when it comes to delivery. It is now a death sentence in the country. It is with this draft constitution that we will be able to hold our authorities accountable for us to know where, how resources are being, used, so that these resources can be in proper use. Today we've talked about, we've been advocating to know where the COVID-19 money, example, was spent. If this money was properly utilized, for example, the Gambia could have constructed a hospital, start constructing a hospital that has a helicopter landing space, where if women have critical condition, they will be flown to the nearest country. Women or any other person have issues, they will flown to the nearest country where they will be treated. But again, it is not the story when it comes to the 1997 Constitution, because it is inadequate. So because we have this, prescription in the 1997 Constitution that stipulates that we can hold our duty bearers accountable, I think women should stand up and ensure that we safeguard our interests with regards to some of these things in the Constitution. So because constitutions are not perfect, we cannot say it is perfect entirely, but it is very progressive compared to the 1997 Constitution, and when comparing it to women's participation, women's empowerment, and women's political representation. It is with this few remarks that I am appealing to all women of the Gambia to advocate, to, let everybody talk to their NAMs, let all young ladies, all women in the various constituencies who were consulted and voted that and give their voices that they want representation in the Constitution, they want women's welfare to be highlighted in the Constitution, to talk to their NAM and appeal to them. Let them critically scrutinize the Constitution and also ensure that this Constitution is passed, because it is of the interest of the women and also of everybody compared to the 1997 Constitution. So without much ado, I will stop the talk here.
And greetings to everyone, including the audience. As a representative of the young people, I will really start by commending the CRC for a great job, because as far as we are concerned, the CRC was a diverse representation, because we had a youth representative in the CRC. And that being the case, the progress started with the composition of the CRC for the young people of this country, because we channel our concerns with regards to the current law and how we want the young people's interests to be represented in the current draft constitution. And to say the least is that the young people of this country are really happy with the draft constitution. And I am saying this because we personally went out to all the constituencies in this country. We gathered about 200 young people in each constituency across the country. We presented the issue document of the CRC to the young people. All these things were discussed with those young people. We came up with a position paper through the recommendations given by those young people across the country. And this is what we submitted to the CRC. Now, to make a flashback on the participation of young people in the 2016 elections, we were all here struggling and yearning for a new Gambia. And the time came in December when young people went to the polls to vote for a new Gambia. This, I am saying, it's because we have been observing elections. It was for the first time in the history of the Gambia that you have a high vote turnout from the young people. What is the cause of that? It's because they wanted to see change. The young people came out in numbers and voted. The vote was based on the fact that the coalition government promised us a constitutional review. They promised us a transitional government. They promised us that the young people's interests will now move from policy, workshop, and to a documentation. That is a legal instrument. And because of that, the young people launched a campaign that we call the Not Too Young to Run campaign. Most of our parliamentarians that are young people in the National Assembly came through that Not Too Young to Run campaign. So on that note, the young people of this country are really stakeholders and participants when it comes to the process of the Gambia being from a dictatorship to a transformed democratic state. Saying that, we the young people of the Gambia are saying this current draft constitution is all we have to have a future in our country. One, the draft constitution, for the first time, we have the rights of the young people, the rights of the youth. Youth empowerment is envisaged in the draft constitution as opposed to the 1997 constitution. Going further, we have what we call the national youth development. For the first time in the history of the Gambia, the young people's empowerment was only on policy. But now to a national constitution, you can stand as a Gambian youth to say that, now I have a right to development. I have a right as a young person. This alone, I think, would warrant our National Assembly members to consider this, because the future and the present of our country is in the hands of young people. We form almost 60% of the population. So to disregard this interest envisaged in the draft constitution will be a disappointment to the young people. Going further, we also have the issue of representation of young people in the draft constitution. We see the sections that talk about the political parties to at least make sure 10% of their candidates for National Assembly and Council elections are young people. That is progressive. We also see the the councils, area councils, to have youth representatives. All these things are progressive provisions in the draft constitution in favor of youth empowerment. And also, we will talk about the issue of the consultations with young people. It is there that the government, in anything that regards matters of young people's interests, they should consult young people. For the first time, we used to have decisions made on behalf of young people, and it will not be to our advantage. But in the draft constitution, it is there mandating the authorities to consult youth on issues relating to them. And to us, that is our power. And any document that seeks not to make sure we are heard through consultations or making sure our voices are heard, then that document is not for the young people. And also, now the question here is, what do we want? Because the constitution is currently with the National Assembly. That means it's either they pass it to the committee stage to discuss the substantive issues of the constitution, or it will never be passed. I am saying, or we are saying, if the constitution, the draft constitution rather, is voted out, like let's say at the second reading, it means we can never transition. And what is the impact of us not transitioning at this stage? It's simple. We are going back to a regime that can perpetuate dictatorship, because the constitution as it is right now is not favorable to not only the young people, but to a democratic state. Why do we came up with the CRC Act in the first place? It is our National Assembly members who felt it necessary to have a new document, because the 1997 Constitution is not what we want. It will not lead us to the Gambia we want. So therefore, by coming up with the CRC Act, it's just enough for them or to us that, honestly, they want a new constitution. So now, to say we will vote it in, it's what is going to make sure we are at the dreamland that we want a new constitution. We are pleading on the National Assembly members. History is going to judge us, especially the young parliamentarians. You are there. We are looking forward to your input in this new draft, and a positive one for that matter. We don't see you as just mere National Assembly members representing constituencies. We see you as young parliamentarians representing the interests of young people in that parliament and the interests of the country at heart. So now, I am appealing to all the following National Assembly members, which are young people: Honorable Mohamed Ndaw, Honorable Sekou Maram, Honorable Fatmata Jawara, Honorable Yakumba Jaite, Honorable Dauda Jawara, aka Seni Jawara, Sana Jawara, Honorable Baile Tunkara, Honorable Omar Sise, Honorable Alaji Mbo, Honorable Bakari Njai, Honorable Suleiman Saho, Honorable Alaji Sow, Honorable Babagale Jalo, Honorable Sekou Bajaju, Honorable Alaji Jawara, and Honorable Seni Jawara. we the young people are appealing to you to please put aside all party, tribal and political affiliations and vote this constitution for the interest of young people and for the progress of our country as Gambians. And I thank you.
Some encouraging comments from our members of parliament, we wouldn't have been here. We are here because the comments we hear from them while we watch them debate the draft constitution in the second reading, some of those comments came very surprising to us, and we thought it was necessary perhaps to remind them of their duty as representative of the people. The question here is simple. The National Assembly agreed from the onset, because they enacted the CRC Act, that it was necessary to set up a commission. They also agreed that it was necessary to define what the commission should do. And the commission have acted based on that act and have delivered. And the executive have done their responsibility by also gazetting the CRC, the draft constitution in the parliament, and now the parliamentarians are debating it. There is direct representation, and there is, there is direct participation and indirect participation. We elected people because we want them to, we delegated power to them so that they can act on our behalf. And in the process of the drafting of the constitution, the CRC didn't go to our representative, they came directly to us. They speak to us first by giving us an issue document for us to answer, respond to the questions that they raised, which we did as young people. We attended consultations of the CRC to express our opinion. We did our own consultation and submit a position to the CRC. So the CRC have consulted directly the people that put the parliamentarian in position of power. And the CRC have now, our representatives have now been given the responsibility to extend that draft back to us so that we can vote for it. But that will not happen until it has passed to the second reading, to the third reading. So basically, we want our NAMs to understand that they have agreed that we needed a new constitution. So come Monday, we would want to see them stand on that agreement that, of course, we need a new constitution. And of course, this constitution we have ticks all the boxes of what has been stated within the act. Because we, as people, have seen that the constitution is as progressive as it can be, and it represents the voices and opinions of Gambian citizens. As young people, we believe this draft constitution is more empowering than any other constitution that we have had here. And beyond the rights and that have been, enshrined in the draft constitution, as Fatoumata mentioned, as young people, as citizens, the fact that the local standing has been extended to us also means that we can stand to defend, or we can have public interest litigation to defend right violation being committed by anybody when we feel so. And as also part of the community, as young people, the Constitution has made much more emphasis on our economics and social rights by bringing in provisions that will allow us to at least put our representative to the task when we feel there is poor service and quality delivery of services to our communities. So this, we think, is very progressive. And it is because of this that we want our National Assembly members to understand, as a people, we think the Constitution is as progressive as it can be, and it stands and it represents the views and aspirations of Gambians, particularly young people. So we expect them to look into the content of the draft Constitution, look at the principles and the merits of the Constitution, then to decide. We want this to guide them when they decide on Monday to move the draft Constitution into the third reading. And when they do, I believe, they will be doing the right thing. Everybody here is saying it. History will judge every one of us where we are right now. So for us to be judged in the right books of history, we need to do the right thing. And the right thing here is to get our Constitution to the third reading. Anything that we felt need to be discussed or need to be revisited it can be done in the third reading. If we don't move it to the third reading, we wouldn't be able to at least discuss the substance of the draft constitution and try to see what can be changed and maybe refer it back to the drafters to make those changes where if people think that is necessary. So I would just want to appeal to all the names that have been called, particularly those young people that we stood for and we supported through the Not You're Too Young to Run campaign to ensure they remember the young people that put them in power. So on a final note, I want to just say that when you are put in a position of power by people, every action that you take, make sure you remember the people that put you in that position. When you do so, then you will be doing so in the interest of the people. And as a representative, the value of your community, the value of your society, supersede every interest you have as an individual. And that should be the first thing that you think about every action that you do. And perhaps on Monday, every National Assembly will be looking at this value, at our community value and our social value as a community. What we want is a new start as a Gambia. And then, not giving us this new constitution is telling us that we don't deserve a new start, something that they campaigned on when they wanted to be in power. Thank you.
And members of the press. The Gambia Center for Victims of Human Rights Violation, known as the Victim Center, wishes to express its full support for the draft constitution, which was prepared by the Constitutional Review Commission in consultation with all stakeholders. The transitional justice process has shown us the atrocities that happened in the former regime. Our concern at the Victim Center is ensuring that the mass violations of human rights violations and abuse of process that happened in the past regime does not happen in the Gambia ever again. Thus, it is imperative that adequate legal and institutional reforms are made in order to usher the Gambia into a new democratic dispensation. As a victim center, we are of the view that the draft constitution contains adequate provisions that would lead the Gambia into a new democratic culture, ranging from term limit, provisions relating to the executive, legislature, and judiciary. The 1997 Constitution, which is still the supreme law of our country, was subjected to over 50 amendments to perpetuate the power of the former president and his regime for 22 years. On December 2nd, 2016, as a people, we finally liberated ourselves from the circles of tyranny and dictatorship. Gambia has decided never to go back in the old ways of the way we used to do things that subjected each and every Gambian to indignity, torture, and human rights violations as a country. Furthermore, we would like to note that this constitution was drafted in consultation with all stakeholders, and it is meant to reflect the views and aspirations of the Gambian people. As such, the Gambian people should have the last word and decide whether or not it is acceptable. In our view, the draft constitution, if accepted, would be a step forward in preventing tyranny and impunity. The Constitutional Review Commission has done its job by holding lengthy and unprecedented consultation with the Gambian populace in order to present a draft constitution that is progressive and represent the views and aspirations of the Gambian people. Thus, we urge all stakeholders to leave that final decision to the people. We are keenly following deliberation on the draft constitution of the Republic of the Gambia, promulgation Bill 2020 at the National Assembly, we implore the National Assembly members as elected representatives of the people to be guided by conscience and integrity to do justice to the express will and aspiration of the people they were elected to serve. Voting no means you are further entrenched the legacy of tyranny and dictatorship in maintaining the 1997 Constitution. The 1997 Constitution was maintained as an instrument to legitimize tyranny and causing self-perpetuating rule with impunity. The mandate of the TRRC is at the tail end. The TRRC have succeeded in a good part in its public hearing. That unfolded all those atrocities that have been perpetrated on Gambians for the past 22 brutal dictatorship. The will make recommendations that will identify perpetrators that bears the greatest responsibility for crimes that are being perpetrated during the past regime. Retaining the 1997 Constitution will make it problematic for effective implementation of the accountability mechanisms. The Victim Center strongly believe that the new progressive Constitution will ensure effective and impartial accountability mechanisms that due process guarantee. We will continue to work with all stakeholders to ensure that the Never Again slogan becomes a reality. Ladies and gentlemen, at the Victim Center, we have registered more than 1,000 victims. All these victims went through serious human rights violations during the past 22-year former regime. We have registered various categories of human rights violations, ranging from enforced disappearances, torture, extrajudicial killing, unlawful arrest and detention. All these victims have been waiting for too long to be provided closure. They have been living in pain and suffering. Some of these victims have serious medical issues as a result of what they have been through in the hands of the state security apparatus of the former regime. Justice as victims of human rights violation, justice means, it does not only mean taking perpetrators to be prosecuted. What justice really means to the victims is to change the old ways of the way we do things in the past, to change the repressive ways we were being subjected by our government and those in authority. We want to see real and meaningful reform agendas and programs instituted by our current dispensation, because that is what the Gambia has decided on December 2nd, 2016. Gambia has decided to transition from poor and repressive governance to good and democratic governance. Gambia has decided on December 2nd, 2016, to reform our institutions, to reform our rule of law institutions, to reform the administration of justice system, to reform the legal framework, and to reform our civil service and the security forces. That is the change that the Gambians have voted on December 2nd, 2016. All these things will be meaningful if we still continue to have the 1997 Constitution to be the legal instrument and the working document of our people, of our nation, as a people and as a government. The Gambia has decided never to go back on that old ways that we used to do business. We trusted those that we have elected into office to be able to lead the direction of change that we envisage on December 2nd, 2016, to usher our new dispensation into a democratic new dispensation that respects the rule of law and guarantees the due process for all that lives in this country. Today, we have seen the Constitutional Review Commission have done a wonderful job by coming up with a very progressive and unprecedented draft constitution that will usher our country into the Third Republic as a government of the people, by the people, for the people. Respect the rule of law and the inalienable dignity of each and every human being that resides in this soil of this country we call the Gambia. To our National Assembly members, to go by their conscience and integrity, to vote yes for the draft constitution presented at the National.
That we hold your scorecard, and if your National Assembly member does not perform, teach them a lesson when we get to the poll. God knows whether it's 2021, by the way, things, or whether they would 1997 Constitution. But I believe, as every speaker has said, we need a new Constitution. We are not telling them how long they should debate. Let them debate. Let them come to a logical conclusion. We want to get to a referendum. We want a new Constitution. That's when the new Gambia will indeed. So with this, we would now open the floor for members of the press. If you have questions, you could address your questions to any of us here, and we will do well to answer your questions and concerns and queries. With this, the floor is open. Any questions? All right, this is, there are no questions. So everybody is at peace. Then if everybody is at peace.
buñ jëlee réew mi ay tànk yu ñuy doxee mooy lu gën a njëlbeen si lu ñuy def